One of my goals has always been to bring science and the paranormal together. Paranormal is just science undiscovered or misunderstood.
Every time I keep asking how good can it get, this prompts the participatory universe to provide us with answers that we genuinely do want to live the answer to.
Hello, my name is Christopher Anatra. You know me as the Quantum Businessman.
And I say, you know what, I don't need to know where I'm headed. I thought I knew where I was headed before and I didn't end up there. So why worry about where I'm headed? Why not just accept this now moment, trust that whatever guided me here with you guys that I feel is divine is going to continue to guide me.
The content you are about to watch is meant for thought and consideration. Please be respectful of each other and opinions shared. This is a safe place to express thoughts, ideas, and information. Please note that no copyright infringement is intended with regards to inclusion of short excerpts of material that are included in accordance with fair use under Section 107 of the Copyright Act. IMEC, or International Mandela Effect Conference, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization designed to support ongoing Mandela Effect research. To learn more about IMEC, please go to imec.world.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the International Mandela Effect Conference, Season 5, Episode 3. And the winner is. It's great to have all of you guys here along for the ride. We have a lot of information to get into, ladies and gentlemen, including our Golden Mandy Award winner for 2024, voted by you, the audience. So cannot wait to get to that part, folks. But before we do, I would like to go ahead and bring on our incredible team this week. This month. We have Miss Cynthia Sue Larson of RealityShifters.com. Great to have you here. Wearing the lucky shades. Look at her now.
How good can it get?
And then we have Miss... How good can it get? I've got a bit of a delay, so I do apologize, guys. And we have also got Shane Robinson of Unbiased and On the Fence. Glad to have you here with us, Shane.
What's up, everybody?
Not much. Good to see you. Cynthia, I seen that picture the other day of you wearing those glasses. That was adorable.
Getting in the spirit. Luck of the Irish.
Yeah.
Indeed. And this is the week of the St. Patrick's Day, so definitely a lot of fun there. I hope everybody had a very safe and wonderful St. Patrick's Day also.
Yes.
With that said, folks, we have a lot of information to get into, so let's go ahead and jump right to it. Today's agenda, we have the board member updates, as we do each month. Then we have the Golden Mandy winner, ladies and gentlemen, followed by concrete ships. What is that about? Celebrity name may be a little different than if we remember it. Lazarus animals. We've got a couple Lazarus animals to go over, folks. You guys know I've got a bit of a soft spot in my heart for those. Then we're going to touch on fire rainbows. What in the world are fire rainbows? Followed by our mailbag, and finally our Q&A. So we've got a good bit to go over. It looks like a short list, but I promise you it's going to take quite a while to get through. Definitely stick around. It is going to be worth it. But first things first, ladies and gentlemen, we have the Golden Mandy Award. This is a very prestigious award we give out once a year, and it is voted on by the community, as you guys know, to determine who has done the most to push the conversation of the Mandela Effect forward in the previous year.
Well,
Go ahead, Cynthia.
I think we'll do our updates first, actually, and then we'll dive in. Yeah.
Oh, if we must. Before we do get to that winner, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and do some board member updates. Starting with Saskia, why you wanted board member updates. You're first in line. I'm kidding. Starting, ladies and gentlemen, with Miss Cynthia Sue Larson of Reality.
So funny. Oh my gosh. Yeah, well, I've been thinking a lot about this convergence that's going on, and I talked about it in my new Reality Shifters, which is on Substack now. I also did a video talking about it a little bit. The convergence I'm bringing up is between artificial intelligence, this ET UFO disclosure, and telepathy, like the telepathy tapes and everything. And what I see with the convergence is it's going to be unavoidable that with AI, especially robotics and so forth, there's definitely going to be a press forward into the realm of basically mind reading. That's something that's been poo-pooed for so many years, but I expect we'll be seeing a lot more about it. And the telepathy tapes that have come out are showing, of course, that autistic kids have amazing ability to see what's being read in a book behind their head, that they have no way they could be reading that, or to know things that they have no space-time connection with. It's evident. But obviously, we are going through a human evolutionary upgrade period. And I think all of the limiting factors of our attentional space are being blown apart lately. So we'll start seeing, as I've seen, that anybody can be psychic, as a lot of people have known, simply by shutting down or damping down the interference factor, which you might think of as your left brain analytical rational tendencies. So you can shut that down by learning to do it through meditation, going into a hypnotic state, lots of different ways to do it. But it's a big deal. And then the other big thing that I want to announce, I did have a little graphic for that, if you can see it. Yeah, that's like it's a Venn diagram. So the Venn diagram is showing the AI, the ET UFO disclosure, and then the telepathy psi. And there's a convergence happening. And where they converge, they are closing in on consciousness itself. And that's what everything's all about. So for those of us who've been dedicating our life's work to this whole field, what a great time to be alive. Oh my gosh, there's so much happening right now. And the other thing I want to mention that's coming up in August this year, it's the only thing that I've got scheduled to be a live appearance so far. It's August 22nd through August 24th. It's in Crestone, Colorado. I'll be with Paula Harris. She's a big proponent of disclosure and awareness about what's going on with the ETs, the UFOs, and consciousness. And we'll be talking about oneness. And then, of course, joined with Julian Chameroy. He's French. I've not met him in person before, but he's written a book about oneness, and he's all about consciousness. He's a contactee also. So we'll be three of us contactees, all of us focused on oneness, talking about this at pretty much the capital for UFO contact, Crestone, Colorado. It's as high, basically, as the Himalayas. So it's very special. It's a spiritual capital of the world as well. So if people are wondering why there, because the location, it's location, and it is remote, yes. But that means you're more likely to be contacted by the real thing, by genuine consciousness, and making that collaborative connection with one another on Earth, humans to humans, as well as humans to other species on Earth, plants and animals, as well as the rest of our family of conscious beings in the cosmos. So that's my big news, and look forward to hearing from everybody that wants to submit firsthand reports of reality shifts. My website is realityshifters.com. I've got a YouTube channel. I'm on Substack, and you can contact me at cynthia@realityshifters.com.
You're lucky we've got more to go in this show, because we could have a full conversation just on everything you just said. I've got a theory on the mountain, by the way. Having lived in the mountains myself for a period of time, I wonder if it has to do with the amount of crystals and whatnot that are actually formed within the mountain, and the pressure thereon creating an energy that is kind of liked by these vehicles. I've always wondered that. But again, we could talk about that for ages and not get to the Mandela Effect if we're not careful. So thank you so much for the update, Cynthia. They can find your work at realityshifters.com. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. Love to hear from people. Yes, thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, make sure you sign up for the newsletter over there, as that is definitely something that you're going to enjoy getting in your inbox once a month. Great stories, always uplifting, and I mean, how good can it get, right?
Yes. Yes. Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, Cynthia Sue Larson. Next up, we have Mr. Shane Robinson, as Chris is not able to join us this month as he has a prior commitment. So We will be having him here in spirit only this time. But Shane Robinson, Mr. Unbiased and on the Fence, tell us about your month, my friend. How you been?
Oh, excellent. We have a new addition to the family. So I've got my third grandchild, my grandson that was just born. And yeah, I've taken a little bit of a break away from the regular duties to spend time with all of this that's been going on. A lot's been happening with that. But I have been noticing the telepathy coming on, just to sort of dovetail off of what Cynthia was just happening so many times and so many conversations with people I'm close to, like my family members. They'll start talking about something I was thinking about or vice versa. But just recently something happened which became apparent to me that this could actually be a good way to practice. So me and my son were talking about a song. We could think of the name of the song, but it was like a one-hit wonder song. So neither one of us could remember the name of the artist. So we're thinking of it. Once he looked it up and saw the answer to it, I knew it. It was like he sent the information to me. So I thought, oh my God, what a great way to sort of practice, the telepathy thing, because clearly it just popped in my head right when he saw it. And because we like shared that information in a way. So it's like he put it in the field or something. I'm not really sure how it works, but it was clearly evident that like I would have never thought of it too. It was like one of those names that I know I would have never thought of too. So just a nifty little way if you want to practice this whole telepathy thing coming online. That's just one way of doing it. Maybe pick an actor that's kind of, I don't know, like not as famous in a movie you guys, you and someone else watched, and then try to remember the name, that sort of thing. And if you can come up with one that neither one of you remember, then one of you look it up and see if you can send that information to the other one. I think that's easier than sort of a cold reading, you know what I mean? So it's like learning those techniques that might help in these initial beginning stages of this ability coming online, because it's really exciting when it happens.
It's super exciting.
You remember, Shane, a couple months ago, I actually asked the team, have you guys had this going on? Have you been experiencing this?
Yeah.
And it seems to only be growing since then. So,
yeah. So, yeah, as far as reaching me, uotf.net is sort of the one place you can go that links to everything else, including my YouTube channel, Unbiased on the Fence on YouTube.
And have you done a recent
and it
video?
is up and running this month.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is up and running this month. Yeah, I can't remember the last video I did. I know I covered. No, I do have one coming. I do have videos coming up more dealing with hypnosis and self-hypnosis and things like that. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Definitely.
Excellent. Shane, High Vibin 888 says, congratulations, Grandpa Shane.
Thank you so much, Maria.
So there you go. Congratulations, my friend. I know it's amazing to be a grandfather. I've got a couple of the grands myself. It's an absolute honor to be able to be a grandfather. So I know you're going to love it, my friend. You said there's a third one, so it ain't your first rodeo either.
Right, but
there you go,
those babies are, right at first, the babies are just so new and they're just like freshly from God, and you can, I don't know, just staring at them. It's just, I don't know, it's just amazing. So that never gets old.
By the way, have you watched the telepathy tapes?
I'm not sure. Is that something new?
Yeah, I've seen a bit of it, and it's quite interesting because this is where those autistic kids are able to do things that don't make any logical, they don't fit in the materialistic paradigm. So they're able to know things, see things, be aware of things. And
Where can we see these?
It's on YouTube. You can actually watch. Yeah. So you can see some of it there. There's a documentary about it. And then it's a podcast. So it's been coming out. And I think it's been picked up. I think one of the key members has been interviewed maybe by Joe Rogan recently.
That's, I think, where I heard about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Diane was interviewed by Joe, I believe.
Right.
That's so exciting. This is becoming mainstream,
Cold Heart interviewed Diane, I believe.
Right. That sounds right. So this is, we're going to hear more about this. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. The telepathy tapes, one thing is, like you mentioned, Cynthia, these are autistic, nonverbal, non-interactive kids, like very, very extreme spectrum. And usually it's the mother. 9 times out of 10, it's a connection directly with the mother, not always. And what they say is, like, they'll do a random math problem. The mother will look at the number and the information will be automatically in the child's head.
Right.
So same as you were saying, they'll think it and automatically it's there, right? Or vice versa. So the way you said that literally is exactly how it's being explained in the telepathy tapes.
Very cool. That's really cool. I'm going to watch it. I've definitely heard about the findings coming out that are like, you can't really deny them. So I've heard about them, but I haven't got to see any of them. I definitely will check that out. Telepathy tapes.
Every Friday, my friend Heather, myself, and my friend Juan are over on TikTok listening to an episode every Friday night. We're 2 episodes in, going into episode 3 this week. So if you're into that, ladies and gentlemen, and into the weird tickety, talkety, tavi, whatever the hell that is, come on over and join us. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, Chris is not here, so I guess it's my turn for an update. Oh, if I must. Got a lot going on in my world, actually. I am in between jobs at the moment, so we are definitely looking for work still. But it turns out we will be moving once again, ladies and gentlemen. The universe is going to put me in a new location, as it does quite a bit. So I will let everybody know once that is finalized that that everything is going good there. I'm not going to really put that out there where I'm going right now, as safety reasons. But got a lot of big movement going on here, a lot of literal movement going on here as we change locations once again. Besides that, just got the Dark Wolves. I'm sorry, not the Dark Wolves Den show. That's on hiatus. The Jerry Hicks show right now we've been doing for a couple months. You can find that on BitChute, Rumble, X, and YouTube. That's more of a political podcast, a nightly political roundup of the news. So if you're interested in stuff like that, come on over and check us out. The Jerry Hicks show, once again, BitChute, Rumble, YouTube, and X. That's pretty much all I got this month. Not a whole lot.
Well, thanks for keeping us posted, and I hope we have a really good and safe move. And let's find out how good it can get for the new establishment.
Indeed, I appreciate that. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm getting a little bit of weird feedback in my microphone.
Oh,
okay.
Did you hear that weird sound again? Backstage, we were hearing some weird stuff. Okay, good.
No, now it's just more like which that might actually be my plug.
Okay.
No, it's not coming through.
High Vibe said that is a lot. Well,
it is a lot.
And also, Jerry and I
it is
going to
be
birthdays before the next time we meet together. Me on the 30th of March and Jerry on the 13th of April. So
that is correct.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Shane.
Happy birthday, Jerry.
Happy birthday, guys.
Appreciate that, my friend.
Well, I love that Aries energy. I think you guys are leading the way, because Aries really should be like, isn't that the first sign of the zodiac? So it really is where everything starts. And that fresh, brand new energy, tabula rasa, fresh eyes, no interference of pre-existing expectations or old, out-of-date beliefs.
That's a good thing.
It's funny because we're known for starting things, right? We're known for starting projects. We're not so much known for finishing them, but we're known for starting them.
But we're a good combination, because we got the Aries, and then Chris and I are Capricorn, so I think we balance it out, and we're we're steady.
Oh, wow, we've only got 2 signs here, Aries and Capricorn. That's it. I never realized that.
Complementary, probably.
It's very complementary and very dynamic. It's because you got the starting energy, and you got the constant, steady, ongoing energy. So it's really good. Very good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I appreciate you guys.
It explains why we have such a great dynamic together, right?
Yeah. And my moon is in Aries, so I love Aries. Aries is just like you're my favorites. I mean, feel like well, I shouldn't pick favorites, but I love Aries. You guys make me happy.
I'm Sun Moon with Scorpio rising, actually.
Cool. I don't know
but anyway, ladies and gentlemen, before we get too far down the horoscope rabbit hole, I don't think we really meant to get onto that topic. So let's go ahead and hop back off of that and back into our show here before we get way off the rails. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we had the Golden Mandy Award in the last couple months. You guys have been voting, and we really, really appreciate that. We'd like to give a huge shout out to all of our 2024 Mandy nominees, as each one of these folks are a winner just for the very fact that they were chosen by the community to even be in the running for this prestigious award, ladies and gentlemen. So our nominees were all time. It looks like we're going to do this in almost alphabetical order here. All Time Scary, I believe his channel is called. Then we have Art of Kicks. I don't know if you guys have watched this guy. I really like watching him. He's kind of funny, actually. He covers a lot of stuff from UFOs to ghosts to Mandela Effect, anything in the paranormal realm. So if you haven't checked out Art of Kicks, ladies and gentlemen, definitely check that out. Every time I see that, I don't know why, but I automatically read it as Afro Kicks. And for like the first month, I read it as Afro Kicks until I really looked at it. Oh, wait, that's a different word. I'm a little bit dyslexic, I guess. American Alchemy was on the list, as well as C3PO's Golden Calf. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I told him I would do this, and I am. I made a mistake, folks. There was some data that I had that had pointed to one person as a winner. Then I got a new set of data, and the data had changed. It turns out they were not the winner. So I sincerely apologize to C3PO's Golden Calf. I made an absolute mistake. I had notified him he had won. Turns out that was perhaps not the case. So there's one we can mark off the list, folks. But I am going to reach out to him, and I have reached out to him and asked him to come on the show with us, folks. So perhaps next month we'll be joined by C3PO's Golden Calf. So my sincere apologies, C3PO. It was absolutely my fault, and we hope that you don't look at us negatively and you come on next show. So there we go, folks. I had to make a public apology. I told him I would do it, and I did. There we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that one out of the race, we have all-time Art of Kicks and American Alchemy. Who was our winner, ladies and gentlemen? Let's find out as we move forward here. The Golden Mandy winner is All Time Scary. That's right. Unfortunately, he is not able to be with us today, folks, as he is traveling. Woohoo! Congratulations, All Time Scary, from all of us here at the International Mandela Effect Conference. And as I was talking to him, he sent me an email, ladies and gentlemen, that I would like to go ahead and read out to you guys. He said, unfortunately, I'm out of state the next few days, so I'll have to miss the celebration, but I'll be there in spirit. I just wanted to say it's an honor, and I greatly appreciate the acknowledgement and support. I love discussing and unraveling the mystery of the Mandela Effect, and I'm so glad that there are others that feel the same way. This is one of those topics that I could sit down and talk about for hours. Now, I'm going to wait on the rest of this email as we go to the next slide, please, ma'am. So I did these slides as if he was here. He is not. He started making Mandela Effect content about 5 years ago, with the first video being 4 brand new Mandela Effects. And I asked him, what was the Mandela Effect that really got you? And once again, referencing back to the email, he said, since I can't be there, I suppose I can at least mention my absolute favorite Mandela Effect, which is Black Tom Island explosion. The massive timeline-altering event that changed the course I just lost it here. Hold on. I moved screens over here, which changed the course of America forever. I made a video on this topic 5 years ago. When I revisited the topic 3 years ago, the internet had updated everything about this event, and he gives us a link to that video. It's such a deep, disturbing look into how information is created, edited, and pushed. The Black Tom explosion went from having little to no internet presence, despite it being one of the most important events in American history, to now having footage of the event and aftermath, news reports, documentaries, hundreds of articles, and even websites on it. I don't want to spoil too much in this email, but it's phenomenal mystery that deserves much more attention. He goes on to say, anyway, thank you again for the award. I'm extremely grateful and very sorry I couldn't make it. I love what you all do and wish you all the very best. Thank you all time. So there you go, folks. That was directly words from Old Time there. He said, Black Tom explosion. That was a big one, wasn't it?
I got a question for you, Jerry, because related to what he said. Am I understanding correctly that he was noticing that within the 5-year period, there's been a dramatic shift in what was available? Like when he looked at it upon first noticing, wow, Black Tom explosion. I've never heard of that. Between that point 5 years ago and now, it's like things just, facts came up bubbling out of the woodwork is what he's saying. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It seems that, and we all remember this too, when we first heard about it, it was very obscure. There was maybe 3 or 4 official references, and that was it. That's really all we got. There was no like bunch of pictures. There was maybe one picture, I think, but there wasn't like this whole like envelope of information. It was a very, very small amount. And he said over 5 years, he's seen, how'd he put this? Having footage of the event and aftermath, news reports, documentaries, hundreds of articles and websites on it, where when we first found it as a Mandela Effect, 4 or 5 years ago, like he said, that wasn't there.
We noticed the same thing. Yeah, exactly. That is super interesting. And it ties in with what we've been noticing for like lots of things, actually. like you can actually keep watching it and it might continue to change. I was wondering if he's definitely noticing more things are coming in, but I wonder if the event itself is changing in any way. That'll be something to keep an eye on.
I don't know, because we've seen Eva of Once Upon a Timeline talk about this quite a bit, where we'll have something come in as a myth or a joke or something along those lines, and then it'll become real. Then it'll become very rare. Then it'll become sort of rare. Then everybody's known about it since the 1500s, and there's no rarity to it, right? So this is a pattern that we've seen followed over and over and over again with different Mandela effects, where they backfill their information, strangely enough, which is, I mean, that's classic Mandela effect right there. But Black Tom being one of these events that has appeared to backfill. Go ahead.
It raises an interesting question about whether this might be happening within just everyday so-called conspiracy theories, because a lot of people that believe in various, I know that was a CIA term, but some people that feel like, hey, there's something going on here, and they're the first whistleblower, and then time goes by and there's a more and more established path for whatever it might be. We're seeing that now with the JFK disclosure that's coming out. So it's interesting that we've got a track record for this phenomenon happening within the Mandela Effect that's so well established. And it might have a direct tie-in with how we understand reality itself, and why there might be that tendency for a conspiracy theorist to be proved correct eventually. It's like where we're putting our intention and attention, it's like everything starts lining up. And that's fascinating.
So are you suggesting we're literally pulling the evidence in from another possible timeline for our conspiracy theories?
I would say that's entirely doable and totally possible. Yes.
One thing I think that could be happening is the way we have tech before its time, like cameras existing earlier in the timeline, just like the JFK camera is now in color. So clearly color was invented a little earlier. We get videos from the late 1800s when we used to not, like, cameras weren't around back then, right? But now you've got like clips of giants walking down the street and people getting on buses, and just these old clips that you're like, what the heck? Even like, I wouldn't be surprised if more Titanic footage actually emerges, because as we move, that was right in that era when they didn't really have cameras, but now if they're suddenly appearing, then you would expect to see a backfilling of the information, just because the technology is now available more than it changed, and it's sort of like the system's trying to update and add some evidence and to support the change. You know what I'm saying? Like, because either one could be happening, right? Or a little bit of both too, you know.
Yeah, it does seem like there's a lot of ancient technology that's been unacknowledged, such as evidence of nuclear explosions 4,000 years ago in the Middle East, for example. And I've been looking into that lately. And that's not really discussed much. It's like, because it doesn't fit any of the narrative of history and what's supposed to have happened.
It does fit the Sumerians narrative.
Totally does. Totally does.
But even I think they found that like under the Sodom and Gomorrah area that is deemed that God did something, they found evidence of a nuke going off there. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. It was a devastation. So it left the buildings intact, but the plants and animals were destroyed, and the people. There was an evil wind that just wiped things out for a period of like 7 years. And it took about 70 years to get the ground to be fertile again and grow something properly. So everything recovered, but wasn't quite the same. Took a while.
And they have that glass effect to the rocks, that where they can tell it got to this extreme temperature. I forgot the word for it, but they can tell like the temperatures reached super duper high temperatures, you know, for at least a moment.
I know exactly what you're talking about, like that green glass stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. And they can mark it. It was exactly 2024 BC. And that's interesting to me, because we're in 2025. And that's 2024 BC. Yeah, we're 80.
So that was exactly 1,000 years. What 1,001 now?
So yeah, but so we're 2025.
So like
that was so it's 40, a 4,050 year difference, which is really interesting. Yeah, and it's way before there was supposed to be. There shouldn't have been any nuclear weaponry back in that time. But then if you look at books by Zecharia Sitchin and so forth, he'll say like, oh, yes, there were. And we get into some of that in our Patreon. It's a little off topic for us today, but very interesting.
Right. Before we do get too far off into the woods, just go ahead and pull the slides back up real quick. Black Tom was all-time Scary's #1 Mandela Effect. First video on his channel, he covered the dodo bird, which was really interesting. That was the change where we didn't eat them. Apparently, they died off for other reasons, as well as Mount Everest, whether it is or not the tallest mountain. The Salem witch trials, we know about the changes there, as well as the Library of Alexandria did not burn down the way we were told that it did originally. So that was the first video he did on his channel almost 5 years ago. Next slide, please. He's went on to do a number of Mandela Effects. This would go on to become a full series with 32 parts so far. The most recent one released just, about a week or two ago. So this is still an ongoing series that he's doing. He also tends to delve into very specific niches, like all art Mandela Effects he'll do a video on, or all Disney, or all Halloween, or he'll do specific videos on different categories opposed to general Mandela Effects that have come up. Next slide, please. He's covered the simulation theory a couple of times. I did not get an answer from him as to whether or not he thinks that's what could be causing the simulation theory, or causing the Mandela Effect is the simulation theory. But what do you guys think about this? The simulation theory, he's covered it quite a bit on his channel. Clearly, this is one that he's more leaning towards. What do you guys think about that?
Well, it makes sense. We've seen that Philip K. Dick, of course, was a big believer in that there was some kind of like a construct, like a artificial intelligence or a computer or something that was behind all this. And we've talked about that as well. It totally dovetails with the idea that life is just a dream. And then we get into ancient philosophical thinkers looking at all of reality as not really being the true root reality. And they were using different terms. Instead, like Elon Musk would say, the odds of this being the root reality are very minuscule. But in thousands of years ago, philosophers would say that that this is a dream, and this is Maya, illusion, the physical world that we can measure and touch and taste and sense with our senses. That's not really the real reality. They knew that, and they were using the dream analogy. So I like to bring up that I think they were on the right track too. And when you say life is a dream, that's the same thing as saying it's a simulation. In other words, it's not the root reality. We know that, and we've had guests on our show that talked about this as well. Tom Campbell talked about it, and so forth.
Rizwan Virk.
Yes, Rizwan Virk has talked about it. And then I'm trying to think of the gentleman's name from University of Irvine.
Dr. Hoffman?
Yes, Donald Hoffman. Thank you. So obviously, yeah, if we, our senses can trick us. They're interpreters. They're not. So what we think, like, oh, I know it if I can touch it, taste it, sense it. But these are filter systems that we're using. So it's not the real reality. We're going to be more on track using our pure consciousness and direct knowing, like the telepathy tapes and that kind of thing. That's going to be much more the root reality than anything that goes filtered through what we think we're seeing and sensing. So I love this idea of, it's simulation theory, or what I call dream theory, because it's the same. To me, they're analogous, dream or simulation. We're not in the root reality, but the root reality is accessible to us. It's that convergence again between
What do you think, Shane?
ETAI and telepathy.
Yeah, I think,
Right.
like I was just saying earlier, I think it's going to keep getting stronger and stronger. Candace Crawl Goldman's actually in the chat. She's talking about Dolores Cannon, who she worked with, told of a past life of hers where she helped to save the scrolls from that fire in Alexandria. How cool
Nice.
is that? I didn't know about that one. Thanks for sharing that one.
And
Neither did I. That's fascinating.
That's really cool.
So we can keep an eye on the library at Alexandria, and maybe it won't all be destroyed. Like the dodo might be coming back into existence. Like some of our Lazarus species come back. We might have the return of the library at Alexandria. You never know.
Or at least some of the information that was therein, right? That's what I want. The library can stay gone. I just want the books, right?
Well, she was, Candace is saying that's why she was the reporter of lost knowledge, and why she was, so pivotal in bringing information in now. So that's awesome. The lost knowledge, she says.
Absolutely fascinating. She was such an amazing figure herself, of course. Not that I knew her back when she was actually writing these books, but definitely an incredible researcher.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
This community is split right down the middle. I know I say this a lot, but this community is split right down the middle between Cynthia Sue Larson and Dolores Cannon. You either knew one or the other growing up, it tends to be. And if you knew one, you probably didn't know about the other. I didn't know about Dolores. Cynthia was on my radar the whole time.
There may have been a reason for that. If we were both there, it might have alerted the powers that be or whatever, like whoop, whoop, red alert, like too much going on all at once.
Right.
So it's kind of like coming in, and then you can converge when it gets to a level where consciousness on the planet is high enough. Like, okay, now we can both be here.
Yeah. It's too late for them to stop it. Bring
Right.
it all together.
Oh, yeah.
I love that.
Maybe that's why they needed that government office you told us about. But anyway, the ones that very well should have known you and made that very clear to you that they should have known you, and yet they did not.
Yeah. Well, I was actually not wanting to be found because of the artificial intelligence factor at that time. So the whole thing makes sense to me. And now it's okay. It's like, yeah, let's go. It's go time.
Which is an awesome indicator that we're heading in the right direction.
Yes, I agree.
I love that.
Yeah.
Also, Candace, thank you for being here. And everybody in the chat, we really appreciate you guys hanging out with us today. Absolutely love having an audience with us here, as you guys are why we're able to do this and why we do this, actually. So there you go. Let's jump on back into the slides real quick. I think that was our last slide for him. I'm not sure. Okay, so all right. I just wanted to make sure. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Old Time Scary, the winner of the Golden Mandy Award for 2024. Do make sure you stay tuned toward the end of this year, ladies and gentlemen. Woo woo! Make sure you stay tuned toward the end of this year and be watching through the year and see who else is pushing this conversation forward of the Mandela Effect. So, again, a huge shout out and congratulations to All Time Scary. Wonderful job on winning the prestigious Golden Mandy Award. And again, shout out to all of our nominees.
Yeah.
Right. I would definitely like, David, if you're listening, I'd like you to come on the show with us, bud. If you're not able to. Another person I would like to come on the show, like I said, is C3PO's Golden Calf. I really, really owe that to him. I owe a public apology, which I've given. So I sincerely apologize for my actions, that I was wrong with the email that I sent, and we've got that corrected. I felt like such a butt ever since. Like, I feel like such a bad guy, right? But congratulations to all the nominees that were a part of the Golden Mandy Award, Art of Kicks, C3PO's Golden Calf, American. Can you pull that list back up? Because I cannot remember that one. Alchemy, thank you. I can never remember that one. I don't know why. It slipped my mind every time. There we go. All time Art of Kicks, American Alchemy, and C3PO's Golden Calf. So congratulations to all these folks for even being in the running. That is gargantuan. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Well, that American Alchemy, that's a pretty big channel, I think. It's a big one for a lot of different topics, not just the Mandela Effect, but some of the disclosure as well. So these are great channels, all of them. Highly recommend her.
And thank you guys for nominating these. And we should bring up the fact that, because I saw a lot of comments like, why it wasn't like Moneybags in here? Well, Moneybags won previously. A lot of the people that they mentioned have actually already won a Golden Mandy in previous years. So once you win,
they'll ask, why aren't you nominated, Shane? Or what's going on there?
Right. And we have we're not included.
We're not included.
Yeah.
So the exclusions for nomination every year, we did this to make sure that everybody in the community has an equal chance, because if we put Moneybags in here, he'd win every time, hands down, and nobody else would ever have a chance to win. Right.
Well, there's Stavely
any
too.
previous
Stavely's
another
comes
one.
Up a lot. Yeah.
So any previous winner is disallowed to win again, as we want to open it up again to everybody in the community. We don't want to keep giving an award to the same people over and over and over. So if it is somebody that has been nominated and won before, then they are not allowed to be nominated again, as well as members of the board, because we're running the whole thing, right? We're not voting, but we're the ones putting all this together, whatnot. So we are disallowed from winning. As part of the International Mandela Effect Conference ourselves, myself, Cynthia, Shane, and Chris are not allowed to be in the running. We really appreciate you guys that have nominated us. It does mean a lot to us. We very much appreciate that you let us know that you enjoy what we're doing. But unfortunately, we're not allowed in the running. So for those that have been wondering, like, why can't I nominate these certain people? That's the reason, because we want to give everybody a chance in the community. And of course, we're part of the panel that did this, so we're not allowed.
And just so you know, if you have somebody that hasn't been nominated, you'll have up to the end of this year to nominate someone, and we'll run something. So the nomination time is going to be up to the end of the year, and then we select it through the early part of the year. So a lot of people are trying to nominate people when it's like voting time. So you got to know. So if you're really wanting to acknowledge someone, one of the content creators you love that's helping get the word out, we want to help get the word out about them too. So please reach out to us a little bit earlier so that we can put them in and have them just get the word out about them, have people vote for them.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We had another survey going too about where to hold the Mandela Effect Conference. We're not going to get into the results of that one today. So we're going to leave you guys hanging on that just a little bit longer on which one has won that one. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, speaking of getting into, we've got a lot to get into for the rest of this episode. So congratulations to our Golden Mandy winner, All Time Scary. We hope that you do have a chance to come on with us. Ladies and gentlemen, do make sure that you nominate winners or nominate nominees throughout the year. As we get to that point, we'll be able to put that together much more quickly. And it definitely gives the boss a lot less to do. Of course, I mean our producer in the background, Heather. She does an incredible job. Huge shout out to you, Heather. I know you hate it when I do that, but huge shout out to Heather. She's absolutely amazing. She is really the boss that keeps us together. Swear to God. And she sends us a heart over. That's awesome. I didn't embarrass her too much. She gave me a heart, so that's cool. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with that said, let's hop on over to the first Mandela Effect of the month. Here we have concrete ships. Now, I think I forgot to change the picture out. That's my bad. We've got the propeller car picture here. So I'm a dum-dum. I forgot to change the picture. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning when I was working on this thing, so bear with me. But the concrete ships, you can look them up yourself if you'd like on Google or DuckDuckGo or whichever you use. Built and used during World War I and World War II. These ships were made by many countries around the world, so the United States were not the only one to do this. They were literally made out of concrete and very, very little steel for rebar, I guess. As steel was unavailable at the time, they had to find an alternate. Sorry, I just read a comment, private chat comment. So they had to find an alternate way to build these ships. So they built concrete, and I know concrete, how odd, right? Concrete won't float. Turns out concrete can float if you do it right. These primarily carried supplies and ammo. They were even used at Normandy on D-Day, used as bridges, ammo supplies, many different factors. Apparently, they were no longer produced after steel came available again because they could not carry as much as the steel ships could. So even though they were bigger ships, they couldn't hold as much cargo. They were easier to build, but they weren't as efficient to build, I guess. So very strange, because I don't know about you guys, but I've never in my life heard nor have I seen concrete ships. How about you?
Do we have a video?
We do have a video. I was going to wait to get to that.
Okay. I just since we didn't have an image, I thought it might be helpful to
right. I feel that. Before we do, though, just this is the concept here. Have you guys heard of this before?
This is something I've heard of as a hypothetical. I've only heard of it, not historically. I've never heard like this was part of D-Day or anything like that. Instead, I heard it should be hypothetically possible even to have a ship made of concrete. And so that was the context and the fullness that I've heard of it. So for to now hear, oh my gosh, it was used during World Wars I and II. This is a mind blower, because now it's gone from the hypothetical of, like, as we know from physics, you can make this happen, to this actually happened. Because I thought
buoyancy actually is what is proving the buoyancy factor. The argument was you can even put concrete in there if you can make the right buoyancy.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that's so strange is to have it happen not just as proof of concept, but in reality that was actually rolled out, used in wartime. That means they've conquered all of the practical considerations as well. That's huge. So there's a porosity or whatever. It can absorb waters. There might be holes in it, depending on the level of quality that you've got with your concrete. It's material science matter. And so if there's, this is just ginormous. That's gone from something hypothetical, like, oh, you could even build a ship out of concrete. And then they've done this? Like, you got to be kidding me. Because concrete has some issues, shall we say. And it's a little bit, it's not as strong as steel for many, there's just a lot going on there that's just odd. So much that I could say, no, I was not aware of this. And I have so many questions. Like, how did they solve all the problems?
Right. Candace says that she also had only heard of it in that aspect as far as being a concept, right? Never actually, only heard of it hypothetical too, she says. Inner Knowing says never. Autumn Guild says, concrete shoes are supposed to help you sink. A concrete ship doesn't sound right.
Thank you.
What about you, Shane? What do you think of the concrete shoes and ships?
I don't want a pair of the shoes, that's for sure. So, like, when I heard about the ships, I was kind of like, I don't remember concrete ships, but I do remember at some point coming across something. It was either a barge or maybe one of those trolleys that take you across the land that you drive your car on, and it takes you across a river, and then you drive, what do they call those little? So I saw something where they had asphalt or concrete, excuse me, yeah, like a ferry. I've seen it utilized before, and I remember going through that mind-blowing moment of like, how can they use like concrete here? Wouldn't that bring it all down? But even then, I think it was used in combination with steel. It wasn't just a concrete structure. I think it was like concrete and steel, just so you could drive on it or whatever. So I've kind of had that mind-blowing moment, but yeah, to hear that there was a whole ship out of concrete, that's crazy. It's crazy.
Let's go ahead and pull that video real quick. It'll take a couple seconds to get to the screen, but yeah, I agree, Shane. Really, really weird stuff, because it did again use steel in very small, like rebar, if you will, just basic framing, but as little as possible, because there was a steel shortage, right? Due to the war, it was hard to get steel. It was being used in ammunition, different things of that nature, defensive mechanisms. So they had to find an alternate way. Go ahead, Cynthia.
I think that Heather says maybe she can roll the clip, the video, if you give her
ready
2
when
seconds.
you are. I was just waiting on her.
Excuse me.
The war industry running at full throttle, steel became increasingly scarce. Much of it was used for building ships. To overcome this shortage, the United States Maritime Commission ordered dozens of experimental concrete ships. Several other countries also built many of them. In Europe, for example, concrete barges played a crucial role in the D-Day landings in Normandy. Germany also constructed dozens of concrete ships during the Second World War. Despite their advantages, being simpler to produce, using more abundant materials, and being resistant to rust, why aren't they manufactured on a large scale today? Why aren't these massive cargo ships made of concrete? In 1848, the Frenchman Joseph Louis Lambot built the first concrete boat, a small rowboat. And because of this, he is considered the father of ferro cement, the precursor to reinforced concrete. After that, several other countries also built small barges, boats, and other vessels made of concrete. However, it was during the First World War that these vessels gained greater significance, now with reinforced concrete. The US government commissioned 12, primarily to assess their feasibility, with one measuring 434 feet in length, 132 meters. It was such an important technology that in 1918, the United States even caught a German agent stealing an almost complete set of blueprints and plans for concrete ships, which further reinforced the credibility of the project. But before most of them could be completed, the war had already ended and they were sold to private companies.
So there we go. That gives us an idea of what's going on here. Here being a great place to stop it, as this apparently is one of those many concrete ships. What do you guys think?
This is not part of my historical memory of any of this. It's astonishing. And I did not know about this. So, and I think I would have. It seems like it's something important. So it wouldn't have been presented in a physics class as a hypothetical. You can even build a ship out of concrete. They would have said, we did build ships out of concrete. So
right.
That's the whole thing. Like something big has changed.
And again, we go back to the fact that every time we look into these world wars, we see more and more changes. This is new across both World War I and World War II. Apparently as early as 1848, Cynthia, did you catch that?
That is astonishing, really, truly. And if I'd known about this before, then when I've heard in recent years about, I don't know if you're following some of the ancient Roman concrete, it's so much superior to our modern day concrete. Okay, you know about that. Because it's self-healing. Yes. So the Roman concrete, when it goes through certain stressors, it actually repairs itself. And now, if I'd known about, because I do know about that, these are not things I'm forgetting about concrete and how it applies in its applications to water. If I'd heard about the ship factor, I'd be thinking, well, let's use that Roman concrete then, of course, the self-healing kind that can repair when damages occur. Is that possible? I'd be wondering about these things. So it's brand new to me. Absolutely.
Shout out to Teresa Lynch out there in the chat, by the way. She usually does shows over Brian McFarland. Glad to have you along for the ride, Teresa. But yeah, this is very, very strange. As like you said, and I'd like to hear from Shane too. He's been kind of quiet on this one, but hypothetically is the only time I'd ever heard of it. You can make concrete float. It's possible you could build a concrete ship. It's just not feasible or a thing that we would really do, is the way I was always told. Right?
Right.
It's not something that's normal. And you would think at the very least that there would be like information in the documentaries. The concrete ship on D-Day from the Germans or from whoever, had them, right? You would think
Right.
that would be a huge part of these war documentaries. This should be like commonplace knowledge. As many war documentaries as there are, I've never heard of this. Shane, what do you think about this? Very strange.
Yeah, it's very strange indeed. I'm looking at the chat here. Teresa says the dazzle ships freaked me, and that's one of the things that I thought of was those dazzle ships. I don't know if people know, but now
Right.
they've got this water camo where the ships look like they're black and white checkered, and it's like that's just how they were. And it's like, so we've covered that in the past, but it's this same sort of strange past that you just feel like you would have seen had it existed that way before. It would have come up so many times.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm right with you guys. The other one was, what's the name of the cement, the self-healing concrete? What is it called?
I don't know, but it's the ancient Roman
Ferro
technology.
concrete.
Is it? Okay, but they had a way. The
so
Roman.
I'm not sure. This says he was asking about what was the name of the concrete before the steel reinforced. So I think he meant the precursor to regular concrete. Now is what he was saying, which the guy said was ferro concrete in the thing. Now I could be wrong. He could be talking about the Roman concrete. I'm not sure.
But what Red Shadow says, and I wouldn't be surprised if we have it, but yeah, now all we need is a concrete dazzle ship.
Yeah, so the reason that the Roman concrete had that power was lime clasts during the hot mixing process. Quicklime, calcium oxide, is mixed with water, resulting in a chemical reaction that generates heat and forms small, brittle, calcium-rich mineral deposits called lime clasts. So the self-healing mechanism works when cracks appear in the concrete, water seeps into them, interacts with the lime, which then dissolves calcium carbonate from the lime clast, creating calcium-rich solution, which fills the cracks and strengthens the whole thing. So that's why I'm thinking, if I had known that they had concrete ships, I'd be thinking, let's bring in the Roman concrete technology, because obviously it goes together.
Right.
So I'm like,
limestone. Okay. That's exactly what I was thinking was limestone. So I was right. There we go.
Yeah, right there. Yeah.
But yeah, why wouldn't you use a Roman concrete or concrete that could literally self-repair, especially in the water nonetheless?
Yeah.
I would think that would be a better reason to use such. So really
sense. Super weird. Yeah. These are great comments.
We don't have it. Yeah, they are. We don't have it on our list here, folks, but speaking of ships, the astronauts just returned home.
Yes.
I'm so glad that they finally made it back safe. Absolutely amazed by that. Thanks to Elon Musk and SpaceX. But this has kind of been a Mandela effect, as a lot of people remember them turning home like months and months ago in the previous administration. And then now all of a sudden they're back again. What do you guys remember?
I vaguely do remember something about that, but it's kind of that foggy double memory thing that is so common to the Mandela effect. So I do, when you mention it, I'm like, yeah, that sounds familiar. But then if you ask me when was it, I don't know. Like it would be before January.
I said the same thing when I heard this. I said the exact same thing. Like, wow, that does kind of sound familiar, but I can't place when that would have been.
It would have been okay. Here's the question for you guys: before or after the Nashville conference? Because do you think it happened? That's a good marker for us, particularly.
It was definitely before the Nashville conference. It was after the total solar eclipse.
Okay.
It was about like maybe a month or two after that. They were talking about them up in the thing and if they were going to let Elon take over the account. But in my reality, nothing ever happened. which is how
Right.
it worked out. But for a
Let's
lot
see
of
if-
people at that time when that happened, they actually did get rescued, but that didn't happen that way for me. But I know I can see where the mix up happened. You know what I mean? I can pinpoint where it happened, and people kind of got confused because it was like, oh, they got rescued, and then I checked it and they didn't, but it was already going around in the consciousness that people thought.
Well,
they
there
had
are
been
people that swear they remember her coming in, like being taken on a stretcher, not being in the best of health. Like there's
Oh,
very
wow. Specific.
detailed information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear in the chat if anyone remembers that happening in 2024. Would it be also pre-November, like what we're mentioning? And any details people remember, if they do, that'd be cool. I don't have any specific memories. I just have that blurry memory of like, yeah, maybe, and I wouldn't know.
Right.
I'd guess like August. I don't know.
I just happened to do a sky video at that time, and I caught a glimpse of them going by on the video. So I talked
remember
about
that.
it in the video. Yeah, that they
What
were
month
still.
was that? Yeah.
I don't have to go back and look, but I know it was before the conference, but after
Yep.
the solar eclipse sometime, because I'd
Okay.
already done the solar eclipse video.
I'm thinking August, but I'm not sure. The whole thing's blurry.
It's blurry for me. It was summertime though, because I was out late getting the footage and
yeah. Nice.
So yeah, they
So
never got
there you
rescued.
go,
They've
ladies
been
and
up
gentlemen.
there all this time. That's just wild to think.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up,
Apparently,
Terry.
now we found out that they. Oh, absolutely. We can actually think. Who was that? There, I want to say it was actually Candace that brought it up a moment ago. Said, have they talked about the?
Yeah, that was
the
Candace.
astronaut?
Yeah, because
That
she
was
actually
Candace,
sent
yeah.
us some messages about it.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I'd forgot all about it until she mentioned. Oh yeah, there is a Mandela effect behind that. At least claimed Mandela effect. We're fine. We can be here for a long time before the elections. Apparently, according to Candace, or I have a memory that the astronaut said, "We're fine. We can be here for a long time before the election." So
exactly, that was way before the election.
Apparently, that's one reason they weren't able to come home so early, as the party in power at the time did not want to do that particular action. So they were left up there for a extended amount of time because of that.
Yes.
From what I
and SpaceX brought supplies, and people wondered why not rescue them. Yeah, that was the weird thing.
Right,
like,
and
why is SpaceX docked? They gave supplies. What the heck? Why can't they just take people as well? Like, what the heck is going on? I remember questions about that at the time. Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, they had to explain or tell them that to explain why they had Santa hats in space.
Like if they didn't expect to,
supplies delivery. They, like, hello, some gifts for you. Fun. We can't bring
Which,
it back.
I mean, the ISS has been up there for decades. Why wouldn't they have some spare, like, Santa hats stored in the back for every year, like, Christmas celebrations, right? Like, that wasn't strange to me. But anyway, getting off topic again. Right.
But, it's hard to believe
again,
it's been almost a year since the total solar eclipse. Isn't that crazy? That was just like a few weeks from now. It will be a year.
Really?
Yeah, I remember it was beginning of April. It was
Holy
like April 8th.
cow.
Yeah.
We just had the full
Did you guys
lunar
catch
eclipse.
the lunar eclipse the other night? Yeah, did you catch that?
We had overcast skies here, so I couldn't see it. I just saw that the sky got darker and darker behind the clouds, like where the moon had been illuminating things. It took hours, so it gradually got darker, but nothing that I could witness in the Bay Area here in San Francisco area. But I saw a shot from the moon. Yeah.
I seen it actually occurring, and then once it got to like full totality, my grandsons ended up waking up. Now we're talking like 2:00 in the morning, right?
Yeah.
But both of them end up waking up. The first one, the oldest, woke up, and while he's awake, I was like, "Hey, want to see something really cool that nobody ever really gets to see like that? Come here." And I showed him. He thought it was the neatest thing ever, right? So he lays back down. His brother gets up to use the bathroom. We're like, "Hey, this is my science buddy. This dude will tell you everything about science he knows." And it's a lot. Like, you can ask him questions and he's going to tell you very scientific answers. So I was like, "Hey, come here. I know you're really going to love this." And he just thought it was the coolest thing ever. So I was able to share that with both of my grandchildren. They absolutely loved it. It was really weird the way the timing worked out, but I thought it was absolutely amazing. Great lunar eclipse.
Awesome.
And there were firefly
But with that,
photos taken from the moon of there. It wasn't a lunar eclipse. It was kind of like the Earth looked different. It's like blocking out the sun. So full Earth eclipse seen from the moon.
it was
So I
a
saw that
sunset on
picture.
the moon, right?
It just looked like an eclipse, like we would see a lunar eclipse, because the side, there's something weird about the moon and the Earth. That they can, because of their positions, they're both able to block out the sun perfectly, which is kind of against all odds. There's something strange going on. There's something weird about the moon, but that's just one of the many things that are weird. So the Firefly lander there on the moon currently was able to show an image of the Earth blocking out the sun. So it's like a full eclipse of the sun because the Earth is in the way, as seen from the moon.
Yeah, you could see the corona around the Earth.
Yeah.
Just like you see the corona around
Yeah.
On April 8th, when we saw the sun behind the moon. From the moon, they were seeing the sun behind Earth.
Right.
And it looks pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Strange.
This is so far off topic, but on the moon, real quick, the argument is on Cynthia on what you're saying is we just happen to be at the right time in history to see that, right? That's the scientific argument. We just happen to be here when it's just the right variance from Earth and from the sun. My problem with that argument, again, this is way off topic. I just thought about this. At what point in ancient time did we start seeing eclipses?
Right. Exactly. That's where it pays to have
Always
history. And then, like Zechariah Sitchin says, the moon wasn't always there. So you've got people saying the history, it's like it wasn't always there. Like, really, it wasn't there. Then what the heck? Where'd it come from?
There is a tribe of people that reported the time before the moon.
It was a gift. So it came in. So, like, from who? From who brought the moon? Like, but this is off topic, as you said, but not really, because
way off topic.
But not exactly, because remember, it's like, what do we remember? What is the history? So now it's April 2025. We're currently saying, like, I don't remember that the moon showed up at some point, except for indigenous oral traditions, maybe ancient Sumerian texts or something like that. But aside from that, we're not hearing anything. Let's keep an eye on that, because that might change. And Candace Krog Goldman, she's in the chat today. She's the one that brought up, we mentioned it, I think, last time, or maybe the time before, that there had been that strange project to explode nuclear weaponry and explosives on the moon. Carl Sagan was somehow involved in this. That was new to me. So we're paying attention to the moon. We're keeping an eye on it. Things, one of these things to be aware of and see what happens. How does history change pertaining to the moon?
The fact Carl Sagan was involved with that was just so weird to me. Like, I get why they would ask him, but that is so strange. But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Concrete ships led us to spaceships, which led us to the moon. There we go. Next slide, please.
Is the moon concrete, right?
Or is it made of cheese? Ladies and gentlemen, Megan Kelly. I'm sure you guys have heard of this woman one way or the other. But how do you remember her name being spelled? The traditional Megan or Megyn? Now, Cynthia, when we were discussing this earlier, you've got a memory of a little different than others in the group. What do you remember?
Well, right now, I don't remember what I said. It's been a crazy month. Which emails? I don't know. I don't know. But to me, right now, I'm remembering Megyn Kelly. So I don't know what you remember that I said, but is that different? So that is different, I guess.
Well, that's what the current is, actually, is
Okay.
Megyn. So you remember the current. I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I really don't know. I wasn't really following her per se to begin with.
Right.
So I'm not entirely sure. Like, that's not one I would really stand on that hill for.
I think that's what I said too. Yeah, exactly. Because she's new. I wasn't watching her until recently, like recent months, recent couple, like a year or two. I agree. Yeah. So maybe it might have changed, and I just didn't witness the change. Like,
I've
was
been
it not?
watching her forever, all the way back on Fox.
Oh,
I don't know what she's doing now, but like way back when she's on Fox, and I can't tell you which way is right. I have no idea. I never cared enough to pay that much attention. The name sounds familiar, but I don't know about the spelling. I can't change.
what about the chat? We got people coming in that did they remember MEGAN? We got anyone there?
I kind of thought it might be a KELLEY change, but because
Yeah.
that would be
Right.
the type of thing you
Red
see.
Cap Goblin says Schmegan Schmelly. Apparently not a big fan of hers. And Inner Knowing 2021 says MEGAN.
Okay. And
Red Shadow says, I don't think I ever knew her name.
And I think Christopher Anatra, if he was here, I think he remembers MEGAN. So, he's not here with us right now, but I think that was the case, if I remember correctly. We got a couple people do remember MEGAN. That is interesting because it is currently MEGYN.
And you would think a name with that odd of a spelling would actually stand out, right?
Exactly.
Megan spelled like that, because I'd never seen Megan spelled like that.
If anything, I would say that, like, I don't think I've seen Megan spelled like that before. So, but I don't know if they've ever really showed her name on the screen or if they just said her name.
Right.
I know it definitely looks funny, but Megan doesn't look right either for some reason. I don't know. The Jamie Vu thing happened.
Yeah, nothing looks right.
Agreed. So what do you guys remember, ladies and gentlemen? Is this a name change for you? Megan, MEGAN or MEGYN? There we go. Not OBGYN, MEGYN. Ha! Next.
I've been hearing a lot about that lately.
Mhm.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Next slide, please, before we get too far off the rails.
No, with the grain shot.
We have Lazarus animals, ladies and gentlemen. As you guys know, I have a very, very deep spot in my heart for the Lazarus animals. This is something that has fascinated me since the beginning of the Mandela Effect. I had noticed that I kept seeing reports of these animals coming back and coming back and coming back, and I noticed that it was happening a little too often to be chance. So
Right.
we started covering these here on the show, and folks, I can't tell you, in the last 4 or 5 years, 5 years, I think we've been doing this now, how
Yeah.
many we found that just
So
keep
many.
coming back into reality.
Mhm.
Now the question is, are they coming back into reality, or are they coming into our reality from another one?
Right.
Cynthia, did you find this one?
Yes, I like to check in and see each month if I can spot any Lazarus animals and plants coming back. So I did see this one, and this one's been thought to be extinct for 85 years. It was rediscovered, and I guess the last sighting of this, is it called a snakehead, or I can't pronounce the other thing, the China amphibious. So it was,
go.
yeah, okay, I tried, gave it a shot. So I think the last time they collected specimens, it was way back, like a long time ago, almost 100 years ago. That was in the Himalayan region of India. So scientists believed it had died out, as they tend to assume. But then recently, just last year, 3 specimens were collected. And that's a lot, when you find 3 of them. It turned out people were eating these as regular foodstuffs. So not only, it wasn't just like 3 fish were caught, but they found people were regularly consuming them like they always did. So why would they be assumed to be extinct? And I think this is where it comes into Mandela Effect territory, because you've got the natives who are eating this fish. For them, it's necessary the fish doesn't die out, so it doesn't die out. Meanwhile, we've got scientists reporting it's gone because they're studying it and they can't find the darn thing. So it does look like timelines is what I'm getting at. It looks like, we've got these different realities here. And thankfully, it's great when a Lazarus species like this one comes back, because people do depend on it. And it looks like it's plentiful enough that they can continue consuming it. I didn't see anything to report that they've told the natives, stop eating them. It wasn't like that at all. It was like, well, my goodness, we found 3 and this whole group of people is still eating them like usual. So something happened. And that's a big difference, for an entire group of people to be eating them and consuming them like usual. versus no sightings, whatever, for 85 years.
And again, this breaks another, as you pointed out, another thing we normally see with these Lazarus animals is they come back as rare, or there's only 2 of them found, or not the case here. This is a whole like living, thriving species that was there the whole time. Just couldn't nobody see them, that was actually
Right.
looking for them. The locals
Right.
could see them. They were eating them all day.
Yeah, I love that. So it really fits with what we're talking about with the Mandela effect. And you go from, it's almost like a flip-flop, like Costco to Costco. But here, when it's an animal species, it almost seems more important to the locals, certainly, because it's a food source. Now, of course, a lot of people, food source is Costco. But people sometimes get on our case with the Mandela effect. Like, all you guys do is look at logos and history that you forget about. This is not something we're forgetting about. These are scientists who should know what they're doing, reporting on a species that they're tracking regularly, noticing its absence, and then come to find out, well, these people are eating these fish regularly. Like, that is a big discrepancy. And that, to me, indicates we totally have the reality of the Mandela effect going on. In other words, it's like timelines are very different here. So it's worth noting, definitely. And like you, Jerry, I love the Lazarus species. This was, we were told that we'd be seeing this. The Hopi basically talk about that as a prophecy. We'll know that the times are here when we're moving from the 4th world to the 5th, because long extinct species will be coming back. And this one's only 85 years, but we've covered this tiny clams off the coast of California back after 10,000 years. So it doesn't matter how long they've been gone. It seems like they can come back in force at any time period. And that's pretty amazing.
Which is why we talk a lot about the dodo bird and how it could come back. And again, as many Lazarus species as we covered, that's not a stretch to think that the dodo bird or any other of these species could come back. I've said it before. I'm waiting on my Stegosaurus. I want a pet Stegosaurus, by God.
So funny. I don't think I'd want one in the backyard. It's like, how do you keep it in? Like, and when it escapes, then everyone's going to be like looking for you. Like, Jerry, your Stegosaurus. It's it's running amok again.
That's why I want a steg and not a T-Rex.
Well, I
thought that would add a little.
They trampled the chicken coop, it broke through the fences. It's like, yeah.
But our next creature, we've actually got, I believe, a longer time span on, if I'm not mistaken. Next slide, please. We have another Lazarus animal that's come back. Apparently, all of the facts on these are the first fact. It no matter what. Fact one, and fact one. There we go. Again, I made this slideshow at like 3 a.m. I apologize, guys. But this is the Galapagos rail. This is a bird that was considered extinct after not being seen for 190 years. Charles Darwin was the first and last one to observe the Galapagos rail on Floriana Island during his visit to the archipelago in 1835. And it was never seen again until 190 years later, where all of a sudden they have found the Galapagos rail again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry, Candace Crawford just got me. Oh, that's funny. Jerry, your Stegosaurus is out again.
The miniature version.
Oh, I love it.
Now, how did the
Before
emperor penguins and African penguins tie into this?
Well, we've seen okay. Yeah, well, we've seen the giant Galapagos tortoise returned. It was a Lazarus species we covered like last year or the year before. And so now it's like the Galapagos is often a hot spot for these returns. And you might say, well, of course it would be because people don't regularly live there. But in the case of that giant Galapagos tortoise, as we pointed out, that thing was gigantic. So for a very gigantic species to have been gone again, that was gone for a long time, and then it just popped back. And now you've got a beautiful bird. These birds, bird watchers go to the Galapagos to specifically to track what's going on with these species. So it is very noteworthy, as you said, that Charles Darwin observed it, and then it kind of went missing for 190 years. You know, people would be looking for a bird that Charles Darwin observed. So for it to have been supposedly gone for that long, that's nice. So we were in a different timeline, is what it sounds like. That's why we're covering these as Lazarus species, as Mandela effects, because thank goodness it's back. We're glad to see it in real life. We've got a photo of it. I haven't seen one in real life, but I'm excited to see it. It looks beautiful.
Right.
Love the colors. You get a sense of the scale. It doesn't look as big as the Stegosaurus, but it looks cute. So there's that.
Very, very tiny indeed. And we've seen a lot of these bird Mandela effects coming up lately for some reason. Could this be a reference to the sky? Could be something going on in the skies we need to pay more attention to? I don't know. Considering the last two were emperor and African penguins, maybe or maybe not. But again, we're seeing these different versions of birds over and over and over. With different Mandela effects, a lot of them being Lazarus species, of course. So once again, could this be a reason to look at the sky? Could this be a reference to UFOs coming? I mean, personally, I believe in prophecy theory. So could this be prophetic in some way? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, birds are spirit signs. So if you see a bird in a dream, it's usually symbolic of spiritual connection, that there's a spiritual an inspiration, there's an idea, there's some information coming through to pay attention to. If we look at the colors of this, it looks to me a little bit on the violet part of the spectrum. So again, that would be associated with the seventh chakra going into the eighth and calling on humans to be tuned in to the very higher levels of conscious agency that we might otherwise not be paying attention to. Feels like an invitation. Listen to inspiration. Listen to spirit.
That very well, maybe. What do you think, Shane?
I love the Lazarus species. I think it just points at the fact that life is really just teeming, like Earth is teeming with life, and it's like you can't really stop anything. I don't know. It's just it's not as fragile, I think, as we think. I think it's more persistent. Not that we shouldn't take care of it, but it's resilient.
Well, when you look at the multiverse theory and the idea that we are slipping between universes, could we be, whether we're slipping or they're slipping, could we be ending up on universes that have more and more and more of these Lazarus species? Are we literally picking more up every time we have a shift? Are we gaining more creatures all in one timeline opposed to being spread across the multiverse? Is it all kind of condensing down into this, and that's why we're starting to see more and more Lazarus creatures on our timeline? What do you guys think?
Yeah, it could be. It does seem like there's a convergence of timelines. Sometimes, Chris talks about the hairball of timelines. So if he was here, he'd be tuning into, some of that and what that might indicate. It seems like we're going through sort of a thicket of this convergence, and then we'll be coming back out again, bifurcating apparently. So people often say it's going to be one path or another, but it may not feel like that. It may feel like we're choosing amongst multitudes of paths for those of us who are noticing the Mandela effect.
What do you think, Shane?
I have nothing more to add to that.
There you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the second Lazarus species of the day, the Galapagos rail, last found by Charles Darwin until recently when it was found again. Or did it just hop to another timeline for a little while? We don't know. Next slide, please. Fire rainbows. Back in season 2, episode 1, we covered the extremely rare fire rainbow. So for those guys going, wait, you guys already talked about this. Yes, we did. However, it turns out these fire rainbows are a lot more common than we originally found. Once again, we've seen this We mentioned this earlier. We see this trend when a Mandela effect comes in. It comes in as a rarity, as a one-time thing, as an offshoot of something, an oddball, and then it becomes rare. Then it becomes known. Then it becomes, oh, how do you not know about that, right? So again,
Right.
we're finding this same pattern over and over and over. So back on season 2, episode 1, we covered the fire rainbow and how rare and odd and a natural phenomenon that you just really don't hear about that often. Is very, very rare. Turns out they're not rare. It's very, very common when you do a Google search anymore to find fire rainbows. These 2 pictures particularly are from Hawaii and Alaska, respectively, top and bottom. But again, we're Cynthia, 3 seasons on, we've seen a completely different change in more data showing up, just like we started the show with talking about all time. More data showing up to back what was originally a rare event.
Right. And I've not witnessed this one in my real life. Have you guys seen a fire rainbow up in the sky? Either of you, or anybody in the chat too?
I haven't seen anything quite like this. No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Not to that color spectrum, especially. No, I can't say that I have. But apparently they're pretty normal, so keep your eyes peeled. You might see one pretty soon. But again, when we first did this, they were rare. They were 1, 2, maybe 5 pictures of it. It was really, really hard to find a whole lot of data on this.
Right.
3 seasons ago. 3 years ago, if you will.
And that definitely
so in 3 years we've seen a major increase in the amount of pictures and the amount of data and the amount of or the lack of rarity now. Quantum Healers, Candace says, I saw one in North Carolina, 1985. It was mostly circular. No one knew what I was talking about.
Well, maybe now that's changing. So hopefully it's becoming more common. These are beautiful pictures. They look like opalescent colors in the sky. So it looks like you're looking at a gemstone in the sky.
It does, doesn't it?
It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like something you'd see on like one of those UFO videos or one of those sky messing up videos, right? You guys seen those, like the sun's acting goofy or the clouds are acting weird. Like, seems like something you would see on one of those, right? But this is a completely natural phenomenon. Do you know if it's referred to as a rainbow and not a cloud? It is referred to as a fire rainbow. That is the actual official name of it. And apparently it's a very normal thing to happen now. So there you go.
But there's no fire, rain, or bows in it at all. So sorry.
None. I mean, that's probably a good thing. I wouldn't want fire raining down. That would be bad.
Right, yeah. Exciting name, though.
Next slide, please. I believe that is our last Mandela. Yes, that is our last Mandela effect, ladies and gentlemen. Questions and comments from you. Put your questions and comments in the chat, folks, and we will get to them as soon as we can, as this is your time to ask, if you haven't been already, any questions you like about the current show and anything we have going on here at IMEC. Kind of looks like a sky oil slick. You're not wrong. While we're waiting on comments from the audience, and we've got one marked already we'll get to here in a second. Let's go ahead to the next slide, please. We have our mailbag, ladies and gentlemen. I know this is very, very tiny. No, I'm not going to read that off the screen. We received an email, me and the team did, this month about the conference from 2023, and it was Alicia Thompson was one of the speakers. She gave a exercise for anybody, and you guys can go back and watch it again and do the exercise yourself. An exercise for people to do to try to manifest things just using your consciousness. And she definitely encouraged any and everybody to do this and actually write us and let us know if it was, if it worked or not. So out of the blue the other day, we received an email from a Becca Connor. I did ask her permission to use her name and to read the email online. So we do have the permission, guys. I promise I asked first. But the email says, "Dear IMEC team, the other night I watched a video of Alicia Thompson's talk from the 2023 conference, and I decided to try one of the exercises where you set the intention to see a specific thing in the next 48 hours. There were so many people that wrote in with responses to this that were just so fascinating. Right away, what popped into my head was, I want to see one of those rainbow squirrels. I love the mandanimals and plants the first time I saw them. I set a photo of a rainbow eucalyptus tree as a wallpaper on my internet browser on both my laptop and phone to remind myself of the magic of the universe. Here, I think that's so awesome. I mean, there is no way that rainbow squirrels and rainbow trees have been around my whole life, and I'm just finding out about them now. I think she's experiencing the Mandela Effect. Anyway, so I set the intention as instructed by Alicia. I was afraid maybe I had picked something too bizarre, an animal that doesn't even live in this part of the world. I mostly forgot about the whole thing. But this evening I had this oddly strong desire to make quinoa for dinner, something I had on hand but hadn't eaten for months. I went online to look for a quinoa recipe. On the same page was an ad for a recipe for Irish soda bread, which made me think about Ireland and how much I'd like to visit there. I thought it would be nice to find something fun to watch while eating my quinoa, so I looked on Netflix in a documentary about Ireland. No luck. But I found one that did look interesting to me. The Elephant Whisperers, about people in India who care for orphaned baby elephants. Oh yeah, that's what I want to watch, I thought. Next slide, please. I started playing the film. I had my first bite of too hot quinoa poised above the bowl to cool. The film opens with a man standing in the forest looking up at the treetops. And what is the first thing he sees up there? An Indian giant squirrel. I gasped in shock and laughed with surprised joy. Minutes later, my cheeks hurt because I couldn't stop laughing. I couldn't remember how long it had been since I set the intention, but I realized I could go back in my browser history to find out. That was at 6:10 on Saturday. I found the IMEC video page in my browser history. From Thursday at 6:20 p.m. It had happened within 48 hours, just squeaking by like 10 minutes nonetheless. This was not the first time I've had powerful, conscious, lived experience of the reality of the participatory universe. Participatory universe. But it was the most surprising and fun one in a while. That squirrel was only on screen for about 2 seconds, but I didn't miss it. To think, if it had happened just a few seconds later, I might have missed it because I might have been glancing down at the bite of quinoa instead. Thinking back on the intricate set of circumstances, thoughts, and actions that led me to seeing it, just barely within the 48-hour mark. Pure magic. Becca Connor, New Orleans, Louisiana.
Thank you, Becca. That was an awesome story. I love that.
Yeah, I love it too. It's so beautiful. And it reminds me that we had a reality shift right there at the conference in Connecticut. I think you guys remember that an extra pair of dowsing wires appeared for Alicia Thompson that came out of nowhere. And I think it was caught on camera too. It's like she came in with so many of them and ended up with an extra set. And they were handcrafted.
The look on her face when she picked up that last set.
Yeah. Such a magical experience. So it's good.
That was incredible.
And I love that Becca, it mentions the participatory universe because that's a shout out to John Archibald Wheeler, the American physicist contemporary of Albert Einstein. And he, of course, is the one who gave us names for things like white holes, black holes, and it from bit, which we're using with AI and so forth, but also the participatory universe. And if you wonder why I focus so much on asking questions, like how good can it get? That's because John Archibald Wheeler was the first to point out when you ask nature a question, nature answers. So therefore, it's obvious to me, you want to ask questions, you want to live the answer to, like, I'd love to see a giant rainbow squirrel, or how good can it get? So what we don't want to ask are questions we don't want to live the answers to. So that, to me, that's the biggest takeaway from the whole thing, besides, wow, 48 hours, that's so cool. And I'm glad people are watching our videos from the 2023 conference. Thank you. Because that information, all those talks, and Jerry, you gave a great talk there with all the theories about the Mandela Effect, and Christopher Anatra gave a great talk. Shane, you gave a great talk about the fruits. It's so amazing of, you know, these talks that we gave, they're timeless in a way. So I do hope people keep going back and watching those programs. Thank you. Thank you, Becca.
Oh, especially Alicia's. That is absolutely a timeless talk. Again, most all of them are, but that is absolutely a timeless talk. I know there was so very many that we heard reporting back from this particular experiment specifically that told us, hey, I absolutely seen what I was trying to see. I absolutely got my attention. I absolutely seen that. There were a couple that didn't. Mind you, it's not 100%. It is absolutely not 100%. But it's, what, 80, 75, 80%, would you guys say?
Yeah, it was a pretty good percentage. People were very responsive with that. And I've been suggesting people do that from my book Reality Shifts that came out in the 1990s. And I've been asking people, please do this. And I think the exercises are the key, because when you actually do things, then you can find out, like, this is amazing. And I'm glad that we had people at our last conference too, doing exercises and workshops. So we're doing a lot more hands-on with the in-person conferences. But I think that's so powerful that people get to experience the phenomenon.
I think intent is got a lot to do with just how reality works overall. I think that is one major factor of reality. What do you think, Shane?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's why how good can it get? It works so well. And that's why being optimistic is going to yield you a happier life, you know?
I believe that's all the questions we have on the slides. We have, it looks like, from what I see, at least one question. Yeah, I don't see any more there. So we've got one question from the audience. Heather, if you want to go ahead and pull that back up from earlier in the show. Venus Rising says, unlock under such a furthermore, which I'm not sure that's what they meant to say at the beginning. I am eager to solicit your perspective on 19th century technologies, the hypothesis of mud floods, and the implications of QAnon posting. So we've got 3 questions here, all smacked together into one. So let's handle it one by one. Perspective on 19th century technologies.
I think that would be a reference to what we were kind of bringing up, that some of this really, like, we've got photography that keeps sneaking back further and further in time. Previously, we've talked about electric cars that now suddenly are like 100 years ago. They were lots of different types of them, and just all these technologies that were, you know, kind of pushing back through time. Very interesting. So I think my perspective on that, I'll just start with that one. Maybe we could open that up for all of us to talk about. It's noteworthy. Absolutely, something's going on. I'm seeing that for sure. For me, anyway, that we're constantly getting a pushback. Next thing you know, cell phones will be common 100 years ago. And it's like, where does it end? I don't know that it does end. It seems like the technology comes in earlier and earlier as we're looking back through time and noticing it showing up in photos. I think, speaking of the 2023 conference, I think Christopher Anatra mentioned an old painting of someone holding a cell phone, like an indigenous person holding a cell phone, right? So yeah, this is a big thing, and we can look to see more of it because of the Mandela Effect, because where we put our intention and attention, we see more of it. And that's absolutely happening, even in the past, and even in history.
We have seen cell phones pop up in like the Charlie Chaplin film, or a couple different places. We've seen the cell phone just kind of pop up out of nowhere. It reminds me, and not the cell phone, but this in general, the conversation reminds me of a channel that I keep running across on YouTube. And he shows like pictures that you've never seen before. And just these all like you were saying, Shane, 1900 New York with the streets of horses and this, that, and the other. And the video at times that there's no way they should have had video at that time. I see these all the time, and it reminds me all the time of different Mandela effects and technology back in time. Shane, what's your take on the technology back in time, 19th century tech?
I tried to view it like we were talking about earlier with the tech before its time, and how the the implications of having technology before they were really here, what that can lead to. But also, as I mentioned in my talk, my sessions, that's shown that there are AI insertions into our timeline with things like the mud flood and the incubator babies and things like that. So I really think all of this might tie together in some way. I'm just not really sure, but I do appreciate, the information, and I do keep an eye on it, but I haven't really jumped to any conclusions about what it all means. And I really don't know about QAnon. I haven't watched any of the postings in quite some time, years, in fact.
But you
Right.
did mention the mud floods. Maybe we could move into the mud flood thing. Maybe
I was about to say, yes, ma'am. That's exactly where I was headed, actually.
We can start with Shane on that.
You want to
mud
brief
floods.
that one, Cynthia?
Well, I was going to riff on what I wanted to hear what Shane had to say, because he mentioned that there's an AI influence. I'd like him to expand a little bit. What do you mean, Shane?
Okay, so yeah, the as far as the mud floods, it was kind of tied to this idea of a reset, and that at some point things got flooded by mud, and we just sort of took the buildings we could reuse and just use what we could, and like all of our history has been changed, and there was this place called Tartaria, all of this stuff. It's a big thing to unpack, but it's kind of all tied to the idea of a reset. And where it tied into the other things like incubator babies was that there was an influx of babies at that time. Nobody really knows where they came from. And that's a Mandela effect for people. So I think it's all tied together, with the mud floods and even the World's Fairs, because the technology that was shown at these World Fairs back then seems to be, and the World Fairs themselves seems to be way bigger and more extravagant than anything I'd ever heard of. Right. So I think it's all kind of tied together. I'm not sure where to divide it up, really.
And do we have a time frame on mud floods? Do we have like a roughly linear time year, circa like what century?
I think we're looking at just a couple hundred years ago or so. Are we talking, most people place it in the 1800s, I believe. Yeah.
17, 1800 is where most people place it, yeah.
Yeah, closer to the beginning of the 1800s, maybe. Because some of the films that you see with the trains, they will have the year and it will say like 899. But, they're pretending it's 1899. So I guess some of the theories is that we've just
have the I 899 instead of, right. It's a little I there instead of the one. What people are considering one being, 18 is I 899.
Ah, okay.
And what's the theory about the AI influence, Shane, on all this for the mud floods?
The AI influence is that there was, this big reset, and there was this influx of what we would term NPCs, because if you've got like a flood of people that's following the system, it's easier to control everyone else too. So the other side of that is that if you've got all these empty seats ready to occupy, then you can have an influx of star seats that come in and fill the roles of all the NPCs, and once again backfire another plan of the deep state or this breakaway civilization having a plan that tends to backfire because they don't think far enough ahead. So I definitely see there's this back and forth going on, but there's certainly nothing to worry about. I feel like this is just we're working out the evolution of consciousness right now, and this is what it looks like, and you're like, well, what is a great awakening going to look like? And I say, look around, we're in it,
It's so cool. Yeah, with the 1800s, I when I've done some genealogical research for family members and so forth, I noticed there's a sparseness of data in the 1800s. Now, there are reasons for it that they'll tell you. They'll say, well, the records for the census in the 1800s got destroyed. There's a flood or a fire or whatever. Like, really? That's interesting. And so I find that very interesting that but they don't make a big deal out of it being a mud flood. And when I look at the old newspaper articles, I don't see references to mud flood. Now, remember, I'm doing it from a very mainstream approach of doing genealogical research. So that involves looking at birth and death and marriage records, looking at census data, property holdings, and so forth. So it's always working with primary resources and references. I find this to be extremely fascinating, because then I'm looking at each person's thread. I'm following. It's not an NPC, hopefully, but it would be a person who's an ancestor. So it would be hopefully someone who really is a key player in life. But there's a huge data wipeout in the 1800s that I'm talking about. That's real. And so I think that's a very strange coincidence. Let's just call it a coincidence.
It might all just line
So
up perfectly.
I've done genealogy work on my family, and it's funny you should mention that, because about 4 or 5 generations back on my father's side, it's like this guy just showed up on the earth one day. I can't find any birth records. I can't find anything prior to just the fact that he existed. That's literally it. So again, it goes back along with what you guys are saying here. And the idea that perhaps there was something that went on. I can say I following genealogy, I also have had the same experience. You hit a certain part and the records are just gone. They're not there.
Gone. Yeah, and it's the 1800s were a tough time. Cattle had certain kinds of sickness in the U.S. The country was relatively new. A lot of the technologies and medical things that we rely on weren't there. So you can say all that stuff. Yeah, I've heard that. But maybe there is something more going on. I don't know. It seems like it would have been covered in the news. I did look at some old newspaper articles from the 1800s trying to track these people down sometimes. But if they're out in if they're farmers, you're not going to see anything. The newspapers are best for New York City and so forth, big cities.
And then you've got the idea of the Cabbage Patch Babies and, all the different things. I'm sure you guys have heard about that. I don't want to get too far into that on this show, because we are Mandela Effect. But as far as the answer to the question, 19th century technologies, yes, I absolutely believe that there is technology heading backwards in time. I don't believe it. I've seen it. We've all seen it, right?
We've seen it, yeah.
Things that have showed up in the time that they do not belong in. So absolutely, that is happening. The mud floods is something that I'm very skeptical. I always have been. That's the one good thing about a researcher, is we stay skeptical until we can no further disprove it, thereby proving it. The mud floods is a weird one for me. Because like you said, Cynthia, there's not evidence, there's not reports, there's not newspaper articles, there's not this idea that worldwide, all of a sudden, everything was hit with mud. Maybe it was
a different year. Maybe it wasn't the 1800s. Would you be open to it? Because if it was earlier, then I'd be like, okay, maybe that could have happened earlier. Like the 800s.
It's so funny you should say that, because that's exactly where I'm going. How about the Great Flood?
Okay, right.
That's the only time we've had a worldwide flood. Now, that creating a mud situation, absolutely. A worldwide flood? Yeah, I'll buy that. Now, with that said, I will caveat. Could there be, like mud volcanoes, we know those exist, Mandela Effect, that went off in certain areas? Could it be more localized? I'm absolutely open to that. Maybe a certain area in Europe or a certain area in America, or perhaps there were these mud volcanoes or these mud floods that happened in different regions. I just can't buy the full, Earth at the same time concept, because again, the data just don't show that. The rock layers don't show that. There's no evidence to support in a latter version of that. Again, small areas, Germany, America, maybe some areas in Europe or whatever, Asia, having a flooding incident with mud, absolutely. I'm totally open to that concept. Could that displace a large amount of population? Would that make more sense for the Cabbage Patch Babies? Absolutely. Because then you wouldn't need worldwide, but you'd have enough of a country's population decimated that these children would need a new home. There might just be children only left, So I could definitely see that being a thing, just not worldwide mud floods in the 1800s. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, yeah. And it's antediluvian that you're talking about, so it'd be after the Great Flood. So when did it happen? And that's my big question. Can we pin that down? And if we can, then let's take a look at it. I'm open, but I haven't seen the kind of evidence that people are usually expecting to find. So I'd love to see more of the evidence. It might show up. If we look for it, we tend to find it. So do we want to find that? I don't know. I'm not sure I want. I ask, how good can it get for the past and the future? If that's good, then let's find it. If it's not good, then I don't need to see it. QAnon, that was the third part of this 3-part question. Any thoughts on that, Jerry? Because you're our political guy. Anything you can say on YouTube?
I'm about to step into I'm about to step into this big pile right here. I do apologize. No, seriously. When QAnon was originally happening, 17, 18 time frame, 16, 17, 18 time frame, I did not trust it, did not believe it. To me, it seemed more like a farce. Things weren't happening the way it was saying. The times were all off. It seemed more like role play fiction to me, a LARP, live action role play. And I held that stance.
Let's give. Some people may not know any. They just know it's a conspiracy theory. They hear QAnon and they don't know what it is. But it's someone with Q clearance in a high level position, anonymously revealing, claiming to be providing advanced information that would be useful as to what's about to happen. And then the mockery that then happened from people were saying like, oh, these QAnon housewives and QAnon fools are believing what's being said and predicted. Like you said, it looked a little bit ludicrous because a lot of things weren't coming true, apparently. There wasn't much proof for most people to see that anything that this Q clearance person or people were actually knowing anything.
Right. And it was even questionable whether it was one voice or it was a group of voices. Now, with that said, calm down, Venus, and please quit yelling in the chat. I said a moment ago, I didn't trust it. I wasn't seeing any evidence thereof. Now, everything that I research, I put back here in file 13. If I find things to back it up, cool. We can pull it back out of the file and add it to the evidence list. If not, then it just gets swept away, Yeah. QAnon was one thing that intrigued me, and I didn't fully dismiss it, but again, I can't buy onto something that I can't prove, right? In the last year, 2 years, 3 years, we have seen things from QAnon that there's no way that these could have been predicted to this degree. The moment the Queen was laid in the ground is the same time on the Mickey Mouse watch on QAnon. There are just different things, elements in there that there's too many coincidences to call it a coincidence anymore. So when it began, no, I absolutely did not believe in the QAnon. As times went on, I've been able to see different elements line up that it's impossible that they could have, to the point like I'm starting to wonder if time travel was involved, which Q actually has referenced a number of times, including saying time travel is fun. So could there be something to it? Yeah, absolutely. The more time passes, the more we see happening, especially when things really get going in the Q post, the action that is thought to be occurring. It looks like those actions are occurring right now with our mainstream media, with the information coming out, with the D class. It kept referencing D class page this, D class number that. We don't have a D class to go through. Now Trump is literally declassing everything. So, yeah, I see it lining up more and more in modern times than it did in 2017. So I haven't fully discounted it. It's something that I go back and reference quite a bit in modern times to see how it matches the current reality. And more so, it matches more and more every day. So that's my take on QAnon. I didn't believe it at first, but as times went on, it has proven itself in ways that there's no way I can deny it. Like how many grains of sand do you need to build a beach? How many Mandela effects till you believe it? How many case files till you go, okay, there's something here. So that's where I stand on QAnon right now. It's something that I reference back to every time there's a big story and see how it lines up.
Yeah, and I like the point you made. I don't know. I don't follow QAnon much, or not much at all. I'm aware of it, but that's about it. But I like what you said, Jerry, about that if there was a time travel factor, if the Q person or people were actually outside of linear time, then of course they're going to be able to see things that later are going to make a lot more sense to us. Like this example of the D class now making a lot more sense. And I think it's very interesting. You know, it ties in with what we were saying about earlier about Dolores Cannon and myself and different timelines, and where people may notice that things are coming together more and more. So maybe we'll see this coming together more and more. Those are interesting questions. So I think wherever we put our intention, we'll see it. We'll see stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. To those that are wondering why time travel, that's so far off course. Well,
Not really.
Tesla is thought to have invented a form of time travel, or at least was dabbling in it, if nothing else, whether he knew what he was doing or not. When he passed away, a guy named John G. Trump ended up with this data. John G. Trump, why does that sound familiar? Because that is the uncle of our current president, Donald J. Trump. So to think this could have been used in this capacity isn't all that much, out of the norms. I could actually make a case for why that is. So for those wondering why I jumped to time travel, there's a reason behind that. Believe it or not.
I've been contacted by people that said they used to work in the federal government in a time travel department, but they did not recognize me. Like I popped up out of nowhere. But of course, that's what I would do, because I need to be basically an undercover creative force until such time as it's safe to be more publicly present. So I think
Right.
a lot of the chaotic influencers, chaotic good, let's put it that way, are here in such capacity, and they'll be popping up onto the scenes. So we'll be seeing a lot more of, maybe if you consider Q to be a good force, then that's exactly what's happening. And if you consider ETs and UFOs and that kind of thing to be friendly, then yeah, that's going to happen too. So we'll get a lot more support coming out of apparently nowhere, like the Lazarus animals coming back. And that's going to be the team. In fact, we might see dead people. It's been predicted that the dead masters will return, not just Jesus, but Buddha and Kuan Yin and all the rest. So that sounds far-fetched, but I think we're going to get, buckle up, buckle your seatbelt, get ready, because the Mandela Effect is a big thing. And it does actually encompass blowing the lid off of space-time, and what we thought linear time and 3D space were. That's about to get really opened up when the forbidden physics, the forbidden mathematics is now revealed, 2025 and 2026. So we're right on track.
Or even what consciousness itself is.
Yes, exactly.
And Venus Rising points out Baron Trump's marvelous underground journey. You've also got the work of Ingersoll Lockwood, which really is interesting if you've seen those books. So there we go. That is our thoughts on QAnon, mud floods, and 19th century technologies. Thank you so much for the question. One last question here. It looks like Candace Craw Goldman got one in at the last moment. Have you guys picked a location for the next IMEC conference?
Well, we're still looking.
We're not going to announce it on this episode.
Yeah, we've gotten lots of good input. We need to consider all the factors involved, such as, do we have boots on the ground or someone that can help us scout the area? So that's going to be a factor. There are other factors as well.
Is travel feasible this year?
Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that. So we'll be talking about that more. But going back to Ingersoll Lockwood that Venus was mentioning, I don't know if people realize it, but there's a website, Ingersoll Lockwood, talking about the big new world fairs that Trump would like to bring in. And I think that's so obviously there's a connection there continuing, not just the adventures of Baron Trump, but also world fairs, Trump in general, new technologies. So, this is such an interesting time to be alive.
And the World Fairs where they introduced a lot of technologies, right? That's basically what they were for.
Yep. And it looks like we're going to declassify secret technology, secret mathematics, secret physics that's been suppressed and repressed for about 80 to 100 years. So we're looking forward to that.
If you go to the Ingersoll Lockwood page, ladies and gentlemen, scroll over every single letter. That's all I'm saying. You'll understand if you do. Scroll over every single letter. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump on over to our next slide, please. Mark your calendars, ladies and gentlemen. Mark your calendars. Wednesday, April 23rd, 2025. We will return with another episode of the International Mandela Effect Conference. Open tables. That's right. Hopefully, I will be able to join with this episode. In moving, I'm not sure if I'm going to have the internet hooked up yet by that time. I hope I will. So we'll find out one way or the other if we'll be joining on that day. But I hope you guys are able to join. We will have most likely Christopher Anatra as well as Shane Robinson and Cynthia Sue Larson along for the ride on that show. So hopefully I'll be here, but even if I'm not, I will be here in spirit. April 23rd, 2025. It is a Wednesday. Mark your calendars, ladies and gentlemen. Do not be late. We will love to have you here. Next slide, please. A special thank you to our current and new Patreon sponsors.
Yay.
We thank you so very much. There is a Green Room episode headed your way, ladies and gentlemen, very, very shortly, as you guys are the only ones that get the Green Room episodes. As our Patreon members, that's what you pay for, is special access, and special access you shall get. We really do thank all of our Patreon members very sincerely, as most of the funding for the activities that we're able to do with the community comes from the Patreon members. So absolutely huge shout out to you guys. If you want to help support us, that is the best way to do it. You get something in return. We've got many different tier levels over there. So go on over to patreon.com/IMEC. The producer Heather will be dropping that here in the chat here in just a second. And you can sign up over there, as well as it's on the screen there. It's even right there on the screen. There you go. As well as the QR code too. So go on over, guys. Really, really, we do appreciate that. You guys are what really help make us. Without you guys, we're nothing. We are for, of, and by the community. We're supported by the community. So thank you guys so very much. Check us out on Patreon. Next.
Oh, we did the question.
And that was the questions and comments section. Yeah, apparently I misread that part. Mercury retrograde
That's what it is.
definitely.
It's the granddaddy of them all, the Mercury retrograde. We're having some.
I'm telling you, it's been kicking my butt every
You're not the only
day.
one. Yeah, it's been something.
Can you tell I put this slideshow together? It was full of errors.
We call them Mandela effects here.
Right. Huge shout out and congratulations to all time winner of the 2024 Golden Mandy. Absolutely amazing work that all of our people do in the community. If you are a Mandela Effect channel, keep doing what you're doing. We appreciate it, and the community appreciates it. We look forward to having C3PO's Golden Calf on with us sometime soon. We do hope that he is able to join us maybe next month if we're lucky. I will be reaching out to him and letting him know the date. Cynthia, anything you would like to add before we close it out here today?
Just keep asking, how good can it get, even if it's a Mercury retrograde. And happy birthday, Jerry, and happy birthday, Shane. So, really appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much. I think you mean especially if it's a Mercury retrograde.
Especially. How good can it get?
On behalf of Shane Robinson of Unbiased and On the Fence, Christopher Anatra, you know him as the Quantum Businessman, Cynthia Sue Larson of RealityShifters.com. I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. Together we are the International Mandela Effect Conference. And until next we meet, ladies and gentlemen, do remember, together we go, together we
grow.
Love you guys. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.